At some point, you just have to sit there and ask yourself, is it even worth it anymore? In this case, a lot of people are asking themselves that about eating fast food. There has been so many things with fast food in the news lately in terms of the pricing and some of the manipulative practices that they want to do to keep increasing the prices for people, as well as the whole $20 per hour minimum wage fast food law that California passed. It's just funny, like one of these things that's been relatively, out of the news and quiet for a long time is now like resurging and is a huge headliner. And I've seen a lot of you guys say in my previous fast food videos in the comments like, well, this is a good thing. If less people are eating fast food, then it's about time because people are too fat as it is. Well, I think that's probably a good thing as well. And obviously, it's not good for your health even if you're not fat. So there are benefits to not eating fast food. But I'm not looking at this through a health perspective because I'm looking at all of this more through the lenses of the economy. People purchasing food, goods, services is what keeps our economy moving. But fast food places are starting to take it on the chin right now because historically, fast food restaurants would only increase their prices by roughly about 2% a year, probably pretty close to the average rate of inflation, right? But over 2022 and 2023, the fast food prices went up by double digits. So because of our inflation, the prices of these restaurants have had to go up. I made a video a while back talking about how the most expensive somebody has paid for a Big Mac has been like $18, okay? Somewhere I think in Connecticut. It's just crazy, guys. But even people who are diehard fast food people that typically eat it several times a week are now cutting back. And they actually talked to a few people in this recent story about it. Let's see what they have to say. So they talked to one guy who lives in Kentucky and he used to go to Dunkin' Donuts almost every day for a breakfast sandwich and a coffee, but has cut that down to now 4 days a month because of the price. So you're talking this business, Dunkin' Donuts, used to get this customer every day, guys, or almost every day. And now it's down to basically once a week. So that is a dramatic decrease in sales from just one customer. And this is what I want to look at this through. I know that none of this stuff is good for you and people shouldn't eat it anyways, but let's look at how this might affect the economy. One prediction that I made and has actually been coming true is that when California's new fast food minimum wage went into effect of $20 an hour, that they would be laying people off and cutting their hours. And sure enough, that is already happening, and it hasn't even been a month yet. It's only been a couple of weeks since this went into effect. But prices for fast food is rising all across the country, and these chains are starting to see the pain from this. They talked to another guy who used to go out for fast food 5 times a week, okay? Now he's just down to twice a week. So he's still frequenting these restaurants, but has been cutting it more than in half, guys. So if all of their customers start doing this and people start cutting down their patronage down to half or a quarter of what it once was, how long before you think that these restaurants are going to be closing up shop or having to raise their prices even further to compensate for the lower sales volume? Okay, that's going to have ripple effects throughout the economy that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And also because of the prices of the food going up, it affects how people view eating fast food to begin with. Because, when you get something off the dollar menu from McDonald's, like, oh, for $1, this is pretty good, right? But now, if you're paying $3.50 or $4 for that same item, suddenly it doesn't taste as good anymore because now you're paying, quadruple what it used to cost, and you're getting the same item, if not even a smaller version of it if they're shrinkflating it. And you know who's getting hit by this a lot right now? Are truckers, over-the-road semi-truck drivers, because when you're on the road, the fast food options are by far the most plentiful options available, especially when you're looking to just get off the highway quickly, grab something to eat, and hit the road again. It's all fast food, guys. Like, yeah, you can go to a sit-down restaurant. There are some close to the highway exits, but for the vast majority of places, it's mostly fast food. And when you're talking about going to a truck stop, it's 90% fast food. And truckers are getting hit with this now, and like, okay, it's getting harder and harder to even find something affordable for them to eat. They talked to one trucker who says it's getting so expensive to eat out on his over-the-road trips. He now has a freezer and a microwave inside his truck. He uses that to store leftovers and heat up food from home, which is smart, you know? Not only are you saving money, but you're saving your waistline. You're saving yourself from a lot of future headaches by just avoiding eating this food. And other people who can still afford to eat at these restaurants are choosing not to. Instead, they're saying, you know what? Why am I going to eat at McDonald's or Chipotle or Dunkin' Donuts when I can now go to a restaurant like Chili's or Olive Garden or something like that, that's like a casual sit-down restaurant, and it's not really going to cost me much more. It's going to be roughly the same price. I get service and probably more food for the money. But now that the gap between how much you can spend at one of those restaurants versus fast food is getting so low, it kind of makes sense. Now, of course, if you go to a sit-down restaurant, you're going to have to wait longer and you're going to have to give a tip to the waitress or the waiter. But if you really want to avoid all that, you can just order takeout. Like, a lot of these restaurants offer takeout. You can order takeout, go pick it up yourself, and don't have to pay a tip, guys. And you could be roughly paying the same amount of money, not be eating fast food anymore. But I will say, as somebody who's eaten at all these places at some point in the past, that realistically speaking, none of it's really healthy, guys. Like, these places all use seed oils and, you know, trans fats and a lot of low quality ingredients that are just horrible for your health. And if you want to avoid it, really the only way to avoid it is to avoid eating out altogether. You know, you have to prepare your own food. But a lot of people are looking for deals right now. People want a bargain when they go out to eat. So people are now resorting back to looking for the specials, you know, like Del Taco has 3 tacos for $2 deals on Tuesdays, and Arby's has their 2 for $6 deal sandwiches, okay? And Subway still sends people coupons in the mail. Also, a lot of the apps that these fast food restaurants have will give you a deal for signing up for the app, and there's different things you can do to save money on going to these places. But once again, the sales numbers of these places, I think, are yet another artificial instance of the economy looking better on the surface than it really is, because they say despite all this, you know, in 2023, McDonald's sales were up 8.7% year over year. At Burger King, it was up 7.5% year over year. So it's like, okay, well, obviously, even though prices are higher, people are still eating at these fast food restaurants. But one thing that you never hear any of these stories say is that, yeah, they're still eating there, but everything costs more. This is something I've been saying here on my channel, and they're using these as figures to support how well the economy is doing, guys, when in fact it's anything but. Like, yeah, the sales are up 8.7%, 7.5%, but we know just from the start of this story that the prices at these restaurants are up in the double digits. So actually, when you factor in inflation and you factor in the price increases at these restaurants going up, even just say by 10%, that's double digits, okay? But it's probably more than that. If sales went up 8.7%, but the prices went up 10%, well, you're still actually negative 1.3%. That's one way that nobody's gonna look at this. Instead, you're just gonna hear, you know, sales are up, so that must mean things are going great, guys. But they're looking at sales volume. They're looking at the dollar amounts. And of course, the dollar amount's going to be higher with this 40-year high inflation that we're going through right now. In fact, there's another story I found today that supports exactly that. Because there was a separate story out today from Procter & Gamble saying that the higher prices have been depressing their sales, just like fast food, okay? So this story confirms whatever I just said and what I've been saying here on the channel, guys. Take a listen to this. People have to buy, you know, shampoo, laundry detergent, diapers, and razors, and Procter & Gamble has their hands in all of this. The sales for Procter & Gamble barely inched up in their most recent earnings report, and the reason is because of higher prices. Even though sales were up for Procter & Gamble, it wasn't really because consumers were buying their stuff. It's just because the stuff they are buying costs more. So it kind of artificially gooses their sales figures. It makes it look like people are buying more stuff from Procter & Gamble, but they're just looking at the sales volume, okay? They're saying, okay, if it was $1 million this year and next year it's 1.2 million, they look at that as sales increasing. They're not looking at it as, well, you know, the shampoo now costs $8.99 instead of $5.99 like it used to, and maybe that's the reason that we're seeing this increase. You know, nobody's talking about this. And this is a direct quote from this story saying that they're not actually making more sales. It's just that the prices are so much higher that is the reason for their small uptick in earnings. It's not even because they're selling more stuff. You know, all of these sales volumes and all these sales figures, now that we're in this upside down world economy, should be forced to be reported in how many burgers have you sold, you know, for McDonald's? How many bottles of shampoo or how many razor blades is Procter & Gamble actually selling versus how much they cost? Because how much they cost is irrelevant, because we know that it costs more than it did a couple of years ago. So how many of them are they selling? You know, just like with real estate, we have those figures. In yesterday's video, I gave you guys the breakdown that we are on track to have the slowest 2024 with home sales that we have had in probably 30 years. Last year was already the worst year we've had in 30 years. This is going to be even worse. But we know this because we don't just track how much homes are selling for, we track how many homes are actually selling. And these are not numbers that we hear from these businesses. You know, the worst part about this is they say, you know, customers have been kind of resilient to this throughout 2022 and 2023 with prices going up because people were getting a lot of raises, and you saw a lot of people getting stimulus checks, and a lot of people were still being able to access government loans from PPP and EIDL loans and different things like that. That allowed people to basically put up with these price increases. But that's no longer the case. They say that people are starting to feel price fatigue now in 2024, and that price fatigue is because people don't have the money. People are getting close to maxing out their credit cards. People have already taken the home equity loan or the home equity line of credit. People are already borrowing against the 401k. There's not much else you can really do to continue spending much further. So people are hunkering down, starting to spend less. And also, another reason that sales are slowing down for Procter & Gamble is because, you know, people are switching to other brands. You know, they're buying the grocery store brand for half the price or 30% less, you know, switching to the private brands at the store and buying those because it's just too expensive to buy the name brand stuff. So one thing that Procter & Gamble is betting on right now is they're increasing their marketing spending by 14% this year in hopes to try to bolster sales, guys. But I don't know about you, but when I see a commercial for something and I know it's way more expensive than the alternative that I know I can buy, that doesn't make me go out there and buy it. But obviously they do get results from these commercials, otherwise they wouldn't be spending fortunes on it. Now there's been a lot of chatter in the business world of what's going to happen this year with interest rates and what is the Fed going to do, guys. There has been multiple predictions. I've talked about this on my channel that there's going to be no rate cuts in 2024 despite what the Fed has previously said. You have people now that are basically all but sure that we aren't going to see any rate cuts this year, and we might even see rate increases. For example, Michael Landsberg, he's the Chief Investment Officer over at Landsberg Bennett Private Wealth Management, and he says that we are firmly in the camp of no rate cuts in 2024. And while it's unlikely to occur, there's actually a strong case to be made for the Fed to raise interest rates in 2024 given elevated inflation, low unemployment, high stock prices, Bitcoin surging, and the resurgence of IPOs. So the Fed is under a tremendous amount of pressure right now to potentially even raise rates. Whether they will actually do it is another story. But guess what, guys? Even if they don't raise rates and they just keep them the same, eventually this leads to the road of ruin, according to Michael Hartnett, who is the Bank of America's top global strategist. And he thinks that the no landing scenario is the most likely outcome for the US right now, at least in the immediate future, which means that the labor market remains strong, but inflation also remains strong and way above the Fed's 2% goal, which is so far what we have been seeing. But he says that while that works for a little while, This path eventually leads to trouble for the economy and the stock market, because the longer inflation stays elevated, the longer the Fed has to keep policy restrictive or even tighten further, putting the economy at risk of a recession as businesses and consumers slow borrowing and spending. Man, what have we been talking about here on the channel? I have to say, guys, it feels good to be right, but I'm not really trying to sit here and brag or anything like that. I just feel good that I feel like I'm leading my viewers in the right direction, like I feel like a lot of you guys are on the same page and are thinking like I am here and are realizing that all that we're hearing right now is noise. And despite what we're being told about how great things are, we all know that it will come to an end. Michael Hartnett also says that we say no landing risk equals rising hard landing risk. And they're currently pricing in a 15% probability that the Fed's actually now going to raise rates this year. Then of course you're going to see all types of problems, including more trouble with the banking system. And a lot of companies are struggling right now. In fact, there's so many people who are huge Tesla fans, but Tesla has been taking it on the chin so far this year. And they just cut the price of their cars even further, guys, because sales are that far in the toilet, which I find hard to believe because the sales of these cars are subsidized by the government. We have these EV tax credits right now, which probably led the Tesla to being one of the best-selling cars in America, and now they're struggling, even with this tax credit still available. This week, they've just cut their best-selling Model Y, as well as the Model S and X, by an additional $2,000 after disappointing first quarter sales. So now the cheapest version of the Model Y is about $43,000, and it's the lowest that it's ever been. They just laid off a ton of people. In fact, this is the largest layoff in recent history, guys. 14,000 people in one fell swoop. Look at this tech layoff chart from layoffs.fyi. This takes the cake. This recent layoff that Tesla just did is the largest layoff that we have seen over the past couple of years from any tech company. I would consider Tesla a hybrid tech/car company. And the funny thing is that even though Tesla just laid off all these people and they're cutting the price of their car, they're still trying to get the shareholders to vote for Elon Musk's $56 billion compensation package. So don't worry, Elon Musk is still going to get his $56 billion, no problem. But we're going to cut the price of the cars and we're going to lay off 14,000 people. I'm surprised somebody like him, who seems to be kind of charitable sometimes, especially with the way that he runs things, I'm surprised that he didn't just take the cut and keep all these 14,000 people employed and still lower the price of the cars, because clearly $56 billion is probably enough to do that. And also they're having huge problems with their Cybertrucks. In fact, they just recalled 3,900 Cybertrucks because they're having problems with the accelerator pedals that can dislodge and cause the vehicle to unintentionally accelerate, increasing the risk of a crash, guys. Like, that is so crazy. Now, every automaker has recalls. It's not like Tesla is unique in this department, but it's funny because this thing was, delayed and delayed and delayed for such a long time, and then it finally just came out after years of anticipation. And with all that time to work out the kinks, they're still having, little Mickey Mouse problems like that, like the accelerator is gonna fall off and cause you to crash. I mean, that's insane. Things are just not going well for Tesla right now. They, in fact, just reported their first year-over-year sales drop since the early days of the pandemic. They delivered 386,810 vehicles in the first quarter, well short of the estimates of what all the analysts thought it was going to be. Yet another sign that what once everybody thought was an untouchable tech/car company is starting to experience a pretty major downturn. And for all you Bitcoiners out there, the halving just happened, okay? And I want to talk for a minute about this, on how this might affect the economy, because a lot of people thought that this is going to make Bitcoin shoot through the roof, and so far hasn't done squat. It's still stuck near the $64,000, $65,000 mark, even though the halving has happened. A lot of people say that the halving was already priced into the current price of Bitcoin, and that's why you're not seeing this happen. But let's take a look at how this affects the economy from the perspective of people who mine the Bitcoins, because ironically enough, the halving of Bitcoin is also going to cut in half the pay of the people who mine it. That's right, because previously the reward to mine Bitcoin was 6.25 Bitcoin if you're the lucky winner and your computer guesses the math problem that you need to guess in order to mine Bitcoin. But now that the halving has happened, has now been cut in half down to 3.125 Bitcoin. And you can say, oh, well, this doesn't matter because the price of Bitcoin is so high, so they're still gonna make a lot of money. Yeah, but they were making double the money just a couple days ago. And people make money off of this, guys, because there's about 1 Bitcoin mine every 10 minutes or so. So every 10 minutes, somebody's mining one of these Bitcoins and taking this 50% pay cut. They say this is gonna wipe out billions of dollars in annual revenue for miners. But if the price of Bitcoin keeps going up, then this loss will be mitigated. But that is all predicated on if the price of Bitcoin keeps going up, which who knows if that's going to happen, guys. I own Bitcoin. I do think it's going to continue to increase in the future. But right now, during the everything bubble, during a time when, people can't afford to even live somewhere, when people can't afford to buy the median price home, I don't think we're going to see the price climb too much further in the near future. I could be wrong about that. It's just a guess. It's just a hunch based on the way things are going. If people are cutting back on fast food, who's going to be pouring a bunch of money into Bitcoin right now? Who knows? Maybe the people who are rich in this world have so much money that they can just buy all the real estate, they can buy all the businesses, they can buy all the Bitcoin, they can buy all the gold and silver in the world and just own everything. Who knows? But JP Morgan thinks that Bitcoin miners are going to have to consolidate moving forward and pool their resources in order to still be able to turn a decent profit. And the people who mine Bitcoin better hope that the price continues to go up, because the next halving is 4 years away. And when that happens, the reward to mine Bitcoin will go down by yet another half. It will go down from 3.125 down to 1.5625 Bitcoin per Bitcoin mined. So I don't know, guys, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. People say it can go anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars to over $1 million. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But in the meantime, people that mine it are really going to be taking it on the chin and losing a lot of money. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.